Hello and welcome to episode 58 of NF Show, NF Magazine's official weekly video and audio podcast. This week's episode is titled Top Spot, and I'm going to be your host for this episode. My name is Noah, and in the host chair, my awesome co-pilot, Evan.
I'm in the cool spot, is where I'm at. You might be the top spot, I'm in the cool spot.
That's right, you're a sidekick spot. Sidekick?
Sidekick. I'm sidekicking it. I've got more terrible jokes like that to just throw out there this week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did not overlook your tweet back and forth last week with Sonic Tonic claiming that you were the one in charge, that you were the Iwata and I was the Miyamoto. So
yeah, you're coming up with all these crazy games that I just kind of let you go along with, like last week. I'm definitely Iwata. Sure, Miyamoto, you can do this. You can make Star Fox full of motion controls and break my heart. Yes, go ahead. I'll go along with this tomfoolery.
But you cannot get rid of me.
I can't.
Ever.
Yeah.
Because I have the imagination and you have the haircut.
Mm-hmm. I should try to do the butt cut. I don't know if it'd be possible with my curly hair, but
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe with enough gel and enough willpower, it could happen.
Possibly, but Iwata doesn't use gel in his hair. At least it doesn't look like it.
Well, yeah, I think his hair is naturally straight. So this week's episode is going to be about hairstyling tips and tricks.
Brought to you by Style Savvy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great tie-in, actually. No, actually, it's not. We're not going to talk about that. We have to talk about the 3DS family's awesome month of sales during last month for February. That's going to be our main topic of discussion. We also have some fresh game impressions from Evan and some game impressions for me of stuff that's really old. But, that's what I love about Nintendo games. That's what I think a lot of people love about Nintendo games is you can come back to titles that have been out for 2 years or more or decades, and they're still really great. And that was something that happened with me this evening. Before that, there is a little news tidbit from one of Evan's and my favorite developers, Level 5, who is said to be having an event next month where they're going to be showing off not only Fantasy Life 2, much to Evan's delight, but also Professor Layton 7?
Yes. And I think they've shown a little bit of Professor Layton 7. It's like a mobile game or whatever, and there have been some screenshots and stuff out there. And it's supposedly coming to 3DS as well, but it'll be interesting to see. I feel like it's been at least a year since we've seen those screenshots, maybe even longer, to see kind of what that title has morphed into.
And this isn't the Layton Brothers game, correct?
I don't think so. I think that's already come.
Yeah, that's out already. That's a mobile game for sure.
I'll be honest, with Layton, I still haven't finished the 6th game, the Azron Legacy, which came out on 3DS last year. Wait a second, aren't you still on the 5th game, the Miracle Mask?
It's a miracle you remembered that.
So when you have like two of what I would say some of your most vocal and dedicated fans that have that much fatigue, and to be honest, we got like 6 games within a 8-year time span, so it's not that surprising, but I'm curious to see what they do with Layton 7, but I'll be honest, I'm more excited to see the possibilities of Fantasy Life 2.
What is it about Fantasy Life 2 that you're hopeful for or wanting to see based on your experience with the first one?
I just think that Fantasy Life is it's the definition of whimsical, and it's got really cool online components, and I think if they kind of refocus the story and kind of draw back on it a little bit, like hold up and not make it as text heavy, you could have a really phenomenal game. But Fantasy Life's really cool, and just everything that you can. But I think you appreciate it, Noah, because I'm pretty sure you can go throughout the entire experience just doing the single player portion without defeating a single enemy. You can do a very passive experience where everyone holds hands and sings Kumbaya out together. And I think it's cool that there's that sort of customization and that you can kind of play as you see fit. I think that's really neat, especially in a huge RPG for a handheld system.
Right on. Well, I'm glad to hear that you are looking forward to it. I wasn't sure. I remember there was a lot of time that you had to put into that game to put your review together, and it's just there's so much content and so much text and all the different classes, and you can go back and forth between them and keep changing where you're going. So definitely you get your money's worth, I think, out of that title if you're into RPGs like that. But when you were talking about beating the game without a single battle, it made me think of Animal Crossing, because that's a game where there isn't a lot of battling. It's very, I don't know if it's kumbaya or pacifist. It's just very peaceful. I like that word better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought of Fantasy Life as an Animal Crossing game, but there's not so much town building or different characters coming in, but there are elements, I guess, that you could see, but it's really about just kind of doing things how you want to do them, and that there are so many different job classes. I mean, I only kind of dabbled in 2 of them, and I put around 30 hours into the game, and that included the full single-player campaign, but, I mean, there's a lot of upper tier, higher level stuff that you can do online, tackling enemies and everything like that. That's really cool. So it's just, I mean, I feel like there's the hyperbole, like games are overflowing with content, and sometimes that's not properly labeled on a game, but I think that you can easily say that about Fantasy Life. There's just so much there to do, and it'd be really tough for a single person, I feel like, to go through all of that.
Excellent. Before we get into other games that we've been playing, we have to give you an update about the magazine. We are entering year 3. The Kickstarter for year 3 was successful, and it was, for a while there, the only means that you had to either create a new subscription or renew your existing subscription to the magazine. But if you didn't get in during the Kickstarter for year 3, fret not. On the online store over at the website, nfmagazine.com, you can still sign up for year 3, which, thanks to all of the awesome stretch goals that were reached during the Kickstarter, that means there's going to be tons of posters and some really excellent content, as always, even regardless of the posters. So if you have not yet signed up and subscribed, you can still go do that. Just go to nfmagazine.com, and over on the homepage, you should be able to find a story and a link that takes you to the store where you can sign up for your subscription. Now let's get into what we've been playing. So Evan, you actually got a new game during the last week to add to your library.
Well, I've had The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D since launch day, but I finally put some time into it this past week. I've been playing Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, which is amazing, and I haven't played any of that this week, which has been hard for me because I want to continue to get new gear and battle new monsters. But I wrote my review for that game, which you'll be able to see in the upcoming issue of NF Magazine. And I also wrote a little second opinion piece on The Legend of Zorro, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D. And I'm nowhere near completing it. I've put in, I'd say, roughly 5 hours, and I've beat the first dungeon. I'm someone that we've talked about this before, Noah, that I've never played much of the first one. I sprained my wrist like after the day after I got the game, so I had put in an hour. So it's basically entirely fresh for me. I loosely remember Clock Town and getting to Woodfall Temple, which is the first dungeon and everything, but it's being more than a decade on top of very little experience. It's like playing a Zelda game for the first time. And I'll admit that unlike, I feel like, a lot of our audience members and just people in general, I am not so sure that I'm crazy about the 3D mechanic and the mass switching mechanics and everything, at least this early on. I'm not totally against it or like upset or throwing my 3DS down and being like, this isn't Zelda, who are you, or whatever. But it's not something that, like, when I played A Link Between Worlds, like, within that first hour, I was just like, this is it. This is great, and I didn't look back. Majora's Mask, there's part of me that's just like, I don't know how I feel about this time constraint, or I don't know how I feel about switching mask or stuff like that. And it's definitely a more puzzly Zelda. It doesn't feel like it's so much about the exploration and adventure, like possibly like I would describe Ocarina of Time or A Link Between Worlds is. It's much more. It's a more constrained world. It's not as big, or at least it doesn't feel as big. Who knows what the actual like data is there and everything. And I sort of have mixed feelings about it all.
Well, I'd be interested to hear if that changes for you over time. No pun intended. For me, I think what I liked about it was the urgency to it. It didn't make it so much a Twitch type of Zelda, but there's just this constant pressure going on, and all these different puzzles, and which mask activity you're going to try to see through to an end. Are you going to be able to try to solve, or are you going to go out into one of the dungeons to see if you can finish that before the 3-day cycle expires? Although the time freezes when you go into the dungeons, so that would be really
Nope,
stressful,
that's not
right?
true.
Does it not?
Nope, time does not freeze going into dungeons.
Oh my goodness, I thought that it did. So I have not repurchased that game. I shouldn't call it a repurchase, I suppose. Yet.
Did you did you beat Majora's Mask?
No, I got like 2/3 through it.
So is that the? Because I know that you're more of a handheld Zelda game fan. Is
Yeah.
that the furthest you've ever gotten in a home console Zelda?
No, I have finished Zelda 2 and Ocarina of Time. Mm, yep, I think that's about it. Did I
Okay.
beat Zelda 1? I think I beat Zelda 1 as
I
well.
didn't. I don't think I knew that you got so far through Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I just thought it was really captivating, but as unfortunately with my ADD, so to speak, uh, some other game came out, and then it
No.
was all about that game. I'm just too easily distracted by the new shiny. So this is a great time to potentially get back into. There have been so many strong recommendations for this title from our audience, and it is definitely on my must-acquire list. So fret not, I will be sharing my own impressions soon enough
You know, it
alongside it.
reminds me. I'm glad you brought it up. I could see you liking it more because I feel like that you would enjoy the puzzles more and that mechanics. I like you described it well in saying that you have to kind of pre-plan your day. Like, what am I going to do in this 3 day cycle and everything? Like, what's going to be my goal here? And I think one of the things that I've always heard about that and it doesn't really gel with that type of experience is I kind of just like going out and just seeing where the game takes me, whether that's just exploring a
Yeah.
Hyrule field or finding a new dungeon or just kind of being a little aimless. And that is definitely not the mentality. I mean, you could do that, but that's not the mentality you want to take with Majora's Mask. And then you brought up the mask switching, which is cool, but that reminded me a bit of Link's Awakening, and I tried to get into Link's Awakening and found it cool, but one of the things that drove me nuts was every different room you went in, it felt like you needed to go into your item inventory and get a new item, which was needed for that room. And I find in a similar way, even though it's easier with a touchscreen, you're switching mask back and forth almost from room to room. And I don't like that. I don't like this idea that I'm like going to the next area. Okay, let me open up my backpack. Let me figure out what I need for this. Let me figure out this little puzzle. I kind of just like it breaks up the flow for me, I feel.
Is it because of transition animations or something? Because it's not too different from switching between items.
There is a transition, and I wonder if you can switch that. And I know you can press like the A button to kind of cut it, but when you put on like the Decade Scrub mask, there is like an animation that you can sit through, or you can like cut it short, but you still got to cut it short. I don't know what it is. I mean, I feel like you're right with items, but there's just something about that that's it's not like a deal breaker for me, but it's just not something that I can recommend to someone, or I find myself personally enjoying.
Yeah, and I think you're actually not alone. I believe it was Kisaki Project last week who said finished it, liked it, but not enough to say it's one of my favorite Zelda experiences. Just got through it, and that was after a few weeks of hey, I'm making headway. It's pretty good. And then the final verdict though was which it sounds like you may be heading down that path unless something substantially changes. But historically, from what I remember of all the games that you've played, usually your feeling on a game in the first few hours seems to hold all the way through to the end.
Yeah, it depends. I'm definitely intrigued by it, and I love how unique the game is, and you don't have the stereotypical Ganon as the boss. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't show up since you're not in Hyrule and everything. Although if he does, then of course.
Your
But
mind will be blown.
no, it won't. But it's cool that there's the unique setting and everything, and I definitely appreciate that it's so different and everything. But I don't know if it's the core elements of a Zelda game for me don't necessarily line up. Kind of like what I said about, and that's why I'm super stoked though for the open world aspect of the Legend of Zelda Wii U and the idea of going back to, especially the original game is probably my favorite game. This just minimalist story. You're thrown into this world, this dangerous world. It can be really tough. You can die a lot, probably more so than most Zeldas, other than the Adventures of Link. And I'm really excited if they're kind of using that for inspiration. But I understand people. I can definitely understand and see where people are coming from with Majora's Mask.
And I also can appreciate what you're talking about with Link Between Worlds, just allowing the adventure and the storyline to organically develop based on wherever you want to travel. And that was definitely something that was immediately charming and immediately engaging in that game. And you're exactly right. Majora's Mask is pretty much the opposite of that because it's all about time management. It makes time management into a game. And I remember that was my reaction back when it first came out. Is I never thought time management could be so fun. But time management is definitely not a fun activity for some people. And if echoes of your work are playing throughout your game time, then that's not always totally fun if you have a lot of time management that you have to worry in your day-to-day life, and whether it's at work or dealing with school and stuff like that, and then your game is about time management too, it could be potentially a little of a sour note. But
yeah, bleeding
how's
too
your
much into the real world.
yes, how is your Pokemon Shuffle adventure going?
Still enjoying it. Still haven't paid a dime, and still I'm basically I try to S rank every stage, or if I can't, I like gain a few more Pokemon, and then I go back to see if I have more that can take advantage
Mm-hmm.
of their weaknesses and elements. And I check in every day and get my coins, and I check out the specials. And it's not something where I'm necessarily like, oh, I've got to play Pokemon Shuffle today. It's more like, oh, I'm going to play Monster Hunter. I'm going to play Majora's Mask, and I'm like, oh, I'll do a game. I'll play my 5 plays before or after or whatnot, and it's just like it's a good palate cleanser afterward, or it's a good just warm up. It's very relaxing for the most part. I don't get too frustrated, and I still really like it. I wish there were more little experiences like that on the 3DS.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you mention that because that was where I was going to go right when I was about to jump into the Codename Steam demo, but unfortunately the time window that I selected to play both of those games required updates. My Codename Steam demo was at 98%, and Pokemon Shuffle needed some kind of regular update since it's constantly getting new content, new bonuses, and Pokemon added in. And the server was down. And so it was like, oh, Codename Steam, and then I went to Pokemon Shuffle. It's like, nope, server's still down. So of all the things, I thought, well, I need some kind of rabbit hole to spend my time in. And so I went and I got all these notifications saying, oh, there's a secret mission in my notifications. And I went in and it's like, you need to go to the Street Pass Plaza and meet a gold pantsed amiibo at the gate. And I'm like, gold pants? I want to see who's wearing gold pants. And as it turns out, I had 10 Mii's stacked up from my time when I went to Tokyo Game Show last year, and I just had forgotten about that. And
Oh wow!
and it's like, be careful, you don't want to lose the Mii's that you've gathered before you want to use them before you try to meet somebody else at the gates. I'm like, all right, well, I've got time. I'm going to play all the Street Pass games, and it has been a very long time since I've played those. I certainly did not remember all of the finer details and rules because I got pretty far in all of them. I went through all the puzzle swaps, of course, and I was disappointed. Most of the people had barely any puzzles filled out. I had way more panels than most of them, which surprised me because I only really dedicated myself to that during a couple gaming conventions that I went to. But I went through that, and then I played the shooting game, and the mansion game, and the Warriors game, and the garden game, and I just forgot how great those little games were, and it was great to actually have a full stack of 10 Miis to play through everything, find me too, and try to remember what the rules were and try not to lose and totally mess up all the progress that I'd gotten. But they're just great little games, and it was so cool to revisit those. And I looked at the copyright on one of them and it said 2013. I think, man, has it really been 2 years since some of these have come out? And sure enough, it has. But they're still just great. And I wish that I had a strong, steady supply of Miis, because I would play those all the time, no doubt about it. But I've exhausted my Miis, and then I met my special guest at the gate, who of course was a promotional Mii related to Codename Steam, just to rub some salt in the wound that I was not playing the demo. But I know I'll be going back to Pokemon Shuffle and seeing if I can keep up with you, Evan. I don't know if I'll ever catch up with Benjamin, who has done, from what we've heard from our audience, he's probably a superstar rank with everything that he's gathered and accomplished in that game. But I could also see myself, Evan, going back, provided that I don't feel like I'm squandering them, and getting S rank on some of my other battles, because there were some where I felt like the odds were already stacked against you, and given where you're at, if you just naturally progress, once you get to that stage, there's no way you can S rank it until you level up at some later puzzles and then come back. But I'm okay with that. It's kind of fun to kind of get an all platinum type trail behind you in every stage. So I'll definitely be going back to that.
I gotta catch them all too. Gotta catch them all. It's ingrained
Yes.
in my head. I must catch all of those little Pokemon heads. Where their bodies are, I don't worry about. I just
Now let's get into talking about Mpd sales for February 2015. It's not too often that we have a story like this to talk about, so it's very exciting to hear that the 3DS family of systems was actually the #1 selling video game platform for February. That means including outselling PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but that didn't discourage Sony to trot out there and claim that it was the best-selling home console system, because you get into all these semantics,
yes.
and you know all about the 7.
Oh yeah. The PR people love their semantics. The PS3 was hitting its stride, I think, for about 3 years running. I'm surprised. And to be fair, Nintendo, I believe, has been saying that about the Wii U for the past year. Like, sales are up 15% year over year. It's hitting its stride or whatnot. And it's like 15% over an already small number does not a big number make. So, but it was good. I feel like with MPDs, it's something that in the past, Noah, we've really loved to dive into and go through. But over the past year, while Wii U numbers were up year over year, the 3DS was sort of struggling after it had a strong 2013 in the United States. And so the press releases from Nintendo were pretty minimal in information and content, or they just weren't there at all. And finally, we get like some really good information, and lo and behold, it's when Nintendo is doing much better, which isn't surprising. But it's still really cool to see that the new 3DS XL had a strong launch here in the United States, and they moved 395,000 units of the 3DS family, but Nintendo noted a majority of them were the new 3DS XL, which that's a really good number, I feel like, in general for February, which is a short month.
Yeah, and it's not that there weren't some strong titles launching on other consoles during that month, and yet with that many units moved on 3DS XL, also going hand in hand with that was the top spot on the games list was also a 3DS game, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask.
That surprised me, to be honest, that it took the top spot. I mean, this is outselling Evolve, this is outselling The Order 1886, the multi-platform games that are out there, and it's the fastest selling Zelda handheld game ever.
And I wonder what that says to Nintendo. How does Nintendo react to that information? Does that mean, yes, like we were talking about last week, that the next 3D Zelda game that we potentially see, or the next handheld Zelda game we see, goes more in the footsteps of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask? Or will it continue in the steps of Link Between Worlds and Link to the Past? both of them could potentially be big wins. And I think it's so great to see one of the oddest and for a long time least popular Zelda games out there to show that it had gathered so much respect and nostalgia over the years that it ended up being a major mover and a game that I just love the concept of so much. To see it so enthusiastically embraced by people everywhere was great. I did actually hear a story over the weekend. I ran into this dude during a St. Patrick's Day parade who he was wearing a tank top. He was wearing a green tank top with a yellow Triforce insignia on it, and he also had a Triforce tattooed on his shoulder. So I tell this guy's into Zelda. I was like, wow, that's a nice tattoo. He's like, oh, thanks. Yeah. He's like, I thought that I'd match up with my Zelda tattoo with my green Zelda tank top. I'm like, that is totally awesome. He's like, yeah, I actually went out to go get the new 3DS XL. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I had to go out there. I definitely wanted to get Majora's Mask, and I had everything ready, and I went up to the cashier, and then they said, yeah, well, do you have a charger? And he didn't know that the new 3DS XL didn't have a charger, and he got so incensed and disappointed and feeling like he was being nickel and dimed, he said, just put it all back. I'm not getting it. And just canceled his purchase, which was a very strong reaction. I know that I've been there before, but I'm also thinking about it in the scheme of you're about to spend, I don't know, that's like $240 before tax, and they're asking, do you want to spend $12 more? Proportionately, it's not that big of an expense, but on the principle of it, that was really what angered him, was how could Nintendo launch this new system that's so appealing and exciting and launch Majora next to it, which is going to get people like him back into handheld gaming, and then just try to stab them with, oh wait, you have to get an accessory if you want to actually use the system at all, which is kind of shades of Apple's new MacBook announcement during the last week with their new USB-C port. But that is a totally different topic and podcast. But Nintendo's not the only company doing it out there. But they unfortunately lost at least one sale, and I wouldn't be surprised if many more from people. So that number could have been potentially even larger. I would love to have seen what was the total number of chargers sold. Did we see like tens of thousands, or was the number of people buying the new 3DS XL were they actually just upgraders who didn't need to get an extra charger? But we don't know.
Yeah, it'd be really intriguing to see if Nintendo had the information about people upgrading. I would believe that a lot of people are upgrading like I was and everything.
Yeah.
But Majora's Mask was definitely a surprise for me. I figured it'd do well. Also very surprising and super exciting for me is the fact that Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate not only listed on the Mpd charts at number 10, but it also sold over 290,000 copies across retail and the eShop, and that's not only the fastest selling Monster Hunter game on 3DS, so better than 3 Ultimate, it's the fastest selling Capcom game on 3DS ever.
And I can't believe that with some of the stellar Resident Evil games that have come out. And what I also love about this story is that even though 3DS had kind of a lukewarm, mediocre year during the last year, both in terms of what games were provided, how many games were released, and overall sales trending downwards, 3DS can still have a big explosive month, both on the hardware and the software sales front, which says that this system still has some steam in it, no pun intended, or some legs that it can continue into the next year. And the urgency and the need for a successor to the system, while still I think it's necessary, I do think that it's still necessary, but it's not quite as urgent as it was feeling for a lot of the last year.
Yeah, I'm just pumped that like Monster Hunter 4 seems to be growing in popularity with each installment, and it seems like people are getting more excited about the series and starting to kind of understand the intricacies of what that Capcom game has to offer and everything, and to see it do so well and hopefully continue to do well. But I mean, just go back a few years. If someone was like, could Monster Hunter ever be a top 10 game on the Mpd charts? I think a lot of people would have laughed at you and said, no, it's too niche. It's too possibly even Japanese. You hear that tossed around, whatever that means. And for the fact that it continues to grow and Nintendo seems to be helping that, it's really exciting. And it makes me think, I wish Nintendo and Square Enix could bring that kind of determination with Dragon Quest, and we could see some of those games, because I think it also could be successful here. But yeah, I'm really happy. It seems like there are more newcomers to Monster Hunter, and it's a game that relies heavily on online co-op and the online community and people playing together. More people means more fun, and that's really cool.
Yeah, you totally hit the nail on the head talking about Monster Hunter's overall fan base and enthusiasm that's here overseas, because it used to be that's a title that will do awesome in Japan. Everybody loves it, much like Dragon Quest, and it might get ported over here if you're lucky. I think actually Fire Emblem is another series that's kind of like that, to think of a Nintendo first-party title. And it's so cool to see these titles that were these franchises that for years we thought we'd never see over here have not only made it across, but are continuing to grow in popularity in their fan base. So yeah, it's great, especially for people who love the series as much as you, Evan. That means all the better chance of seeing a sequel on who knows what system. Is it going to be a console or a handheld? I don't know, but I definitely think we'll see another one, no doubt. Now that we are done talking about all the great news, there was a little bit of expected news in that Wii U has not, unfortunately, had a comparable month of sales, but that's okay. We still have Splatoon to look forward to, and that actually reminds me of something, a conversation that I had with some friends of mine at work who have Xbox Ones, and they are all excited about titles that are coming out for their system, and then the next week and the week after that, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be so awesome, I'm going to get this, and I don't know which one, if I should get both of them, or what, and neither of them, of course, are coming to Wii U or 3DS, and they were saying like, yeah, we'll have so much content to play if we play this, and I said, well, yeah, but before the next big game that you're looking forward to comes out in June, another title that I'm not mentioning that's not coming to Wii U on principle, but it is a huge game, so if you're a multi-platform gamer, you know what I'm talking about. And you know the next two games that are coming out in the next 2 weeks, this week and next week. But I said, but in between now and then, Splatoon comes out. And he's like, well, what's Splatoon? I'm like, let me show you. It's like I have to pull up the trailer. I'm like, it's just really cool. It's like it's this first-person shooter, just like these other first-person shooters that you're getting excited about. And you actually play these squid people, and you could transform back and forth into squid and from human into squid. And the objective is you're running around with guns, yeah, and it's first-person, but you're actually trying to paint the environment. And something about my spiel wasn't that exciting. He was like, oh yeah, that sounds like Nintendo. I'm like, whatever. Let me pull up the trailer, and then he started watching the trailer. I pulled up the E3 trailer because I remember being so excited by that last year. And he's like, oh wow, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, look at those graphics. Aren't they really good for a Wii U? I'm like, this is really awesome. I think that if you squint hard enough or you imagine hard enough, you could see that being on any system, because it's just it has such great artistic design, and it has such bright colors, and it's not something we're used to seeing. It's not like seeing another Mario game where it's like, wow, this is the prettiest Mario game I've ever seen. But I know Mario games. I know what the enemies look like, so it's not that exciting. Same thing with Zelda. Oh, there's a new art style, but it's a Zelda game. But seeing something totally different and weird in an urban environment, something you don't see coming from Nintendo first parties very much, it's kind of like, wow, this is kind of cool. And so he's like, yeah, well, is that going to have split screen play? And I'm like, it's going to have online play, and it's going to have split screen. He's like, really? Oh, wow. And then I stopped there. I didn't tell him anything about voice chat. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. He's like, I'm going to have to come over and play that. I'm like, yeah, you will come over and play it during whenever game lunches, because this is who I play Smash Brothers with and other games like that, Mario Kart. So I am looking forward to that that instance where we're going to have some awesome Splatoon game time, and we won't have to worry about voice chat because we will be sitting next to each other.
I wonder if they'll have it where you two can go online together. I would hope that that's a possibility.
I would think so. I would think that you would get match made onto teams of, so you could be a full team of 4 versus just us running around versus each other. I would think so. I don't know. That's what frustrates me, because then I pulled it up. I'm like, what's the release date? So I typed it in, and he's still standing on my shoulder. And he's like, May. He's like, an date in May. Yes, this is so Nintendo. And then in my mind, I also said, so is the lack of voice chat. But I'm like, yeah, it's like there's so much we still. Well, there's not so much. We know a lot about the game, but
Yeah,
there are still several crucial details that we don't know about the games.
like anything regarding online, or if there's other
Yeah,
modes, or if two people can go on online together, or if there's any kind what the lobby's like, or if there is definitively no voice chat. Yes, as someone who's very excited about the online components, that makes me nervous. I'm sure we're gonna. Nintendo loves doing their Nintendo Directs and giving a release date 6 weeks out, which I'm all for games being done when they're done
done.
and not just trying to rush out a product to meet a release date. And Nintendo, 99% of the time, I think, is very good about that. But on the other hand, it is infuriating when we're 2 months out from its possible release and we still don't know some critical information, or we don't have the date down set in stone, which I totally get. And the Wii U not selling well, they were, I believe, up 15% over last year, whatever. But once again, people, when you're at a small number and they have just, the Wii U struggled from the beginning, and it's great to see it's getting some momentum, and I'm excited about Splatoon, but I don't know what could change things for that system. It's going to continue to just chug along at its own pace, and hopefully we'll get these really cool games. I hope we see more unique stuff like Splatoon coming out of this year's E3 too. Just very surprising and different on top of Star Fox and The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, there are definitely, without doubt, several, 3 to 5, maybe 3 to 8. I would like to think there's at least 3 to 5 must-have games that I have to get that have not come out yet for my Wii U, which would include Splatoon, Yoshi's Woolly World, and The Legend of Zelda. And surely there's going to be even more than that announced at E3 for what I'm going to guess has to be the Wii U's last year. I don't know. Maybe Nintendo's not ready for it, but I, I feel like I'm torn because I really want those games.
Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Oh yeah, that too. I want all those games, but then I'm also ready. I'm ready for the change to move on to the next system.
There's a lot of cool indie games coming out as well. But yes,
There are, yeah.
it is a very and I feel like we've been in this territory with the Wii U, and it really hurts that third-party content is non-existent. Where it's if one of Nintendo's big games doesn't float your boat, and I think Mario Party 10 is one of those titles for us, and that's their big March game that came out, then you're kind of just in limbo waiting until the next big one. And yes, you can do indie games and stuff like that, but this is something 3DS doesn't have a problem with right now. You've got the big first-party games and big third-party games, plus the indie content coming to that as well. And you hope to see that kind of variety on both systems, but I feel like it's only on 3DS right now. And that's basically why a lot of my time, not only did I just upgrade to the new 3DS XL, but there's just so much to play there right now.
Yeah. And that's actually another good point. We haven't mentioned what are all the big titles that are going to be coming to 3DS within the next year, or the next calendar, or the next year after E3, and who knows what we'll be seeing for that system at E3. We're in this weird twilight period, not Twilight Zone, twilight period for I think both systems, but I still think there's reason to be optimistic and hope for some really cool titles in the final years of these systems.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. We've seen most of the major franchises now on both systems, except obviously Zelda yet on Wii U. So this can be an interesting time. Nintendo can do some new IP like Splatoon and Codename Steam. They can start reaching into their B and C franchises. Like, could we see F-Zero get resurrected?
Yeah.
And what kind of shape will Star Fox? I think Star Fox is going to definitely be one of the most intriguing takeaways from the E3 show. Like, what kind of art style? I think there have been Miyamoto's basically said that you don't have to use motion controls and everything. Like, I as someone who's a huge Star Fox 64 fan, but hasn't really found a game in that series that's captured me quite the same since then, I'm very curious to see how it all plays out. So, and then there's the elephant in the room for both of us, Metroid.
Yes. Anything sci-fi from Nintendo, I always want more of it.
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, to round out our NPD discussion with one final awesome number, an expected number now as of the last few months, Amiibo sales continue to be phenomenal for Nintendo, and now 3.5 million units have gone out there. And that's just, can you just imagine, with not in their boxes, or maybe in their boxes, just imagine a vast white landscape and just all that you see on it are just the amiibo. 3.5 million amiibo just sitting there.
Yeah, you're making the Earth cry. So let's not picture this anymore. Poor Mother Earth.
Or just imagine them as this gigantic mountain. But yeah, it's really cool, and I'm still waiting for the wave for the Smash Amiibo to go on pre-order. Has not happened, and I continue to get in-stock alerts for the Gold Mario Amiibo. That it's slowly driving me insane. Now in stock, get in stock order. Now in stock, we just sold out of that. Now in I'm like, I'm this close to just saying unsubscribe. But that actually should be resolved within the next week because that Amiibo is supposed to come out this week. And I also got a notification from Amazon that my Captain Toad is not only coming, it is coming on release day of all things, which was an unexpected bonus. So maybe I'll have a little Toad sitting behind me at the next episode, which would be really cool.
We can only hope.
Yes. That's all for our NPD numbers discussion. And now we have a ton of awesome feedback to get into. And as my esteemed co-pilot, Evan gets the honors of taking us through those. So take it away, Evan.
Thanks, Noah. And remember, if you want to be featured in our fantastic feedback section, you can email us at show@nfmagazine.com or leave a comment on YouTube. Maybe you want to let us know how your experience with Majora's Mask is going, or what new amiibo you've picked up, or what you think about sales numbers for the 3DS family or Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Be sure to write in. But let's start with some emails. We've got one from Nicholas B. who says, "Thank you for all the effort and energy you put into the show. I'm an iTunes listener, so I really appreciate the podcast version.
Yay.
In particular, I enjoyed your recent discussion about the possibility of a 3D Zelda sequel on 3DS. If they were to make a sequel like that, I like your idea of using Ocarina of Time's overworld, adding new dungeons. But I had another idea. Bring back the time travel mechanic. Let the player explore Hyrule in different time periods, Chrono Trigger style. That might be a clever way to hide new dungeons and design some unique side quests. Think that's a good idea? What other ideas would you two have for a sequel to the N64 Zelda games?"
I think that is actually an awesome idea, Nicholas. That would provide us the opportunity, even if it were a small nugget of an area, taking that whole Chrono Trigger idea into account, to have that futuristic Zelda experience that has been rumored and fantasized for years. I mean, there's been concept art, there's been ideas thrown around of what would a Zelda set in the future with hovercraft and gleaming skyscrapers. What would that be like? And it would be so cool to see some weird futuristic take of Hyrule, whatever that may be, whether it looks like F-Zero or something completely different, or like an apocalyptic wasteland, potentially. Who knows what it could be. But I love the time travel mechanic, and not where it's just two different times of Hyrule like we have in Ocarina of Time, but actually 4 or 5 different times. And it would be cool to run into all these different incarnations of Zelda. Maybe you team up with other incarnations of Link, and oh my goodness, that would be fantastic. I don't think I could even build on that anymore or offer something as an alternative to that. I just think it's such a great idea.
I'd like to see, if they're doing a sequel to the Nintendo 64 games, I'd definitely like to see, maybe you don't play as Link, or Link as we know him. We get some type of different variation on the Hero of Time, or we finally get to play as Zelda on her legend, or on her adventure or something. I think could be really cool. And maybe you do still set it in like the Ocarina of Time, Hyrule Field and everything, but just having that kind of main character switch up could add something very unique and interesting to the game. And maybe it's not as sword based, but it is more bow and arrow based, something like that. And I feel like there's some of that seems to be coming across in the Legend of Zelda Wii U. It seems like there's a very heavy focus on the bow and arrow, even more than the sword so far. But I think you could do really cool things like that to kind of add some twist to the overall experience.
Yeah, good idea, Zone.
We're full of them. All of you all plus us. We'll make our own Zelda game, apparently.
Yeah.
Our next email comes from Axel Joxler, who says, I was at the EGX convention in London last week, and I got the chance to try out SteamWorld Heist. So I figured I'd share my impressions. Well, side note, I'm very jealous of you, Axel Joxler. That's really cool. You guys check that out.
How cool is that?
SteamWorld Dig, we're big fans of that here on the NF.
Yes.
I'll continue on. The game looks gorgeous. Keep the art style of SteamWorld Dig, but with a lot more details. I played Dig on 3DS, so the change to HD graphics felt huge to me. There are all sorts of new characters too, like some sort of fish robot creature, and I was told there would be dozens of other teammates to recruit. Now the gameplay is basically 2D turn-based strategy. Each of your characters can move a certain distance each turn, hide behind cover or not, and after moving you can decide to shoot enemies. The cool thing is that you have to aim manually, and each weapon feels different. The captain has a gun with a laser sight, so you can be very accurate and go for headshots. You can even ricochet bullets on the walls and ceilings to hit enemies behind cover. Another character has an automatic Uzi. It's a lot more powerful, but you can't control precisely where the bullets are going to go. Basically, the gameplay is a mix of Fire Emblem and all the strategic positioning and team management, and Worms for the aiming part. I'm really looking forward to the game now.
I have to confess, I just gobbled up this email hungrily, ravenously, because, as Evan mentioned, we're both really big fans of SteamWorld Dig. Really like that game a lot, and I wasn't sure. I kind of wanted just more of SteamWorld Dig if I were to have another game from those developers. But I also appreciate that they're like, you know what? We've created this cool Steam world, and we're going to do a different genre in every game that we make. We're going to do a different take. We're going to do tower defense, and then we're going to do Dig Dug Mr. Driller, and now we're going to do strategy, kind of like XCOM style. And it's just like, what? No, I really like the Dig game. But just hearing this take on it and the way that you described it, Axel Droxler, it's already fantastic in my mind, and I'm sold on it from that perspective. So good job, and thank you very much for sharing your impressions of that game.
Yes, thank you very much. And it sounds like a great handheld game, like where you can just do these little stages, which has me very excited. I think they're planning for it to come out this year, so hopefully that sticks and we'll all get to play it sooner than later. Let's move on to comments. Our first one is from C. Dixon, who writes in with some feedback and says, I just subscribed to NF Magazine and I can't wait to begin finding Nintendo stuff in the mail again. I really like the idea of you guys doing a hangout for NF Magazine, but I have to say, Noah is such a bummer. I'm sorry that I'm smiling.
He's relishing this.
That's what I've always wanted to say. I'm sorry to have negative input here, but when you guys were talking about Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate having an entry hump and steep learning curve, all I could think of was Noah is the hurdle here in the very
That's awesome.
Why so pessimistic, Noah? It's almost funny, but not extreme enough to come up like a Debbie Downer. Either turn it up and be a full-blown bad cop, or tone down the disappointing attitude. The videos are pretty awkward as they are. Sorry. Enough about Noah, though. It continues on. Hey, Evan, what's on your shelf? It looks like a rad NES, SNES collection. So I'll address that really quick. If you're watching the NF show, behind my left shoulder is my NES collection, complete with the old TV in the bottom corner and stuff. No Super Nintendo stuff that I can think of up there.
Nope. So I wanted to say that I'm very happy to hear that we have folks who are subscribers, new subscribers joining the NF Magazine fan base, the Nintendo Force, and who are also coming over here and checking out the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. and we have just nothing but love and respect for our audience. And this is why we ask people for their feedback, because we want to know, what is it that you like? What is it that you would like changed? Are there new ideas of content that you would like to have done? Now, if you are new to the show, you may not be familiar with Evan taunting me for years about Monster Hunter, all the way back to previous podcasts, even before this one. And it's just an old chestnut that he loves to roll out because he loves the predictability of
I
my
love chestnuts.
reaction. Yes, he loves chestnuts. Look at him. Look at that chestnut-loving face.
Chestnuts.
But I have to say, I actually appreciate C. Dixon that you bringing up that you're like, this is not working for me. And the thing is, there are definitely podcasts out there, there are shows out there that thrive on a little bit of performance art, or people who are particularly acerbic or acidic or just hysterical for the sake of the show being entertaining. And I've definitely seen shows where I appreciate that. But for Evan and I, as long-time, dear, loving friends, it's just not
That's
in
what
our
you
nature
think.
to do that. Except for Evan's.
Tell now.
Yeah. Well, Evan did say, what was it you said that during the last show, that when we're not in the air, that's when all of the flamethrowers come out and the bombs get dropped and the language gets really, really bad. But that's actually not true. I don't think. Only on the inside. Only us. But I loved that C. Dixon actually had some suggestions of how I could react. So these are things that we can try out, Evan, is what I was thinking. And I was thinking, for Monster Hunter 4, let's try out a new set of Noah reactions based on some of the ideas here from C. Dixon. So what I want you to say to me is, hey, Noah, I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to playing some more Monster Hunter 4. And then I'm going to do 3 different reactions. And so let's do the first one. Let's do the Debbie Downer reaction. So
All right.
Here's your cue.
Noah, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is probably the best online co-op experience on 3DS. There's no reason you shouldn't be playing it.
I agree. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is a great game for people who love to have the heads of endangered species mounted on their walls.
Bow, 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 bow.
All right. Next one, we're going to do full-on bad cop angry.
So what's really cool about Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is just the fact that you're constantly learning, and then you'll slowly gain new gear, and it just feels like you're just on this grand adventure, and you're just building up all this cool stuff, and then you get to share it with people.
You know what I'd like to share with you that I would like you to learn? If I haven't told you once, I've told you a million times, I'm not going to play Monster Hunter 4. I'm not going to play Monster Hunter 3. Try G Ultimate. So if you don't stop bringing up Monster Hunter, I'm going to quit. Yay. All right. Last one.
Oh, this is going to be a surprise. Usually you gave me a little precursor and everything.
It's going to be telegraphed too much if I tell you what it is.
All right. Noah, it's gotten to the point where everyone is playing Monster 4 Ultimate except for you. What's your deal?
That's my narcoleptic reaction. As a special bonus just for you, C. Dixon. So, honestly, that's part of what it is. You mentioned that the videos are awkward, which we hope is just part of our charm. But if it is awkward, we apologize. And if you have other ideas,
don't aim for it to be awkward. That's
we don't. Well, we can't. I know that there are awkward moments. It's going to happen because we're just like little Nintendo fanboys talking about Nintendo in our own special way. But if you have other things that you would like to bring up, you mentioned talking about hoping that the show is going to be some kind of cool encapsulation of some of the stuff that you really like about the magazine. So if there are features of the magazine that you think would translate into the show well, or you would like us to give us a try, by all means, let us know. Send in your feedback, and we'll give it a go, because we're always going to be game for trying new things, provided it's something that we can comfortably and confidently feel that we can translate into a cool podcast kit that's also within our technical and performance capabilities.
Yeah, and I'll just add on top of Noah, who handled that really well, the fact that we appreciate all your feedback. And while we do understand people like the devil's advocate, this is more about Noah and I doing this because we like talking about Nintendo games and kind of voicing our frustrations or giving our newest game impressions. We do this in our spare time as fun. This is something that we like to do and we've liked to do over the past years. And I'm talking for myself, but I believe Noah's the same way. I'm not going to just become someone else to spend an hour, because that's not how I want to spend an hour of my free time every week. I want to spend it as myself, talking to Noah about Nintendo games and being as honest with you all as well as Noah as I can be from week to week. So that's basically where I'm coming from. And while we do like to have fun and be joking, I'm not going to just smack down games or anything, do the bad cop either, or the Debbie Downer. I will probably fall asleep at some point, and that'll just be because I am very bored or just very exhausted. Our next comment comes from the Seventh Experiment. It's great to see Evan again. That's right. I'm back. Yeah, nothing else to report. That's the best comment ever.
Like.
And that is episode 58. Seventh Experiment continues. I would really love it if they ended up putting Twilight Princess on the 3DS. I think it's definitely one of my favorite Zelda games, and I really can't decide between it and Ocarina of Time. And I just want to interject real quick. I think Twilight Princess has possibly the best dungeons of the entire franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Twilight Princess dungeons. They're fantastic. Going on, the Seventh Experiment says, also, I recently picked up Codename Steam in the eShop, and so far I've been enjoying it. I'm kind of disappointed to see low ratings for the game and wonder if it's only because of some gameplay mechanics, such as long enemy turns. I haven't even surpassed demo levels yet. In other words, I haven't seen anything new yet, so I can't really say for myself, but next week I will give you some more thoughts on it, which is exciting. I'm not into the gold silver Mario amiibo. I'm not as disgusted by the outlook of the gold amiibo as Evan, but it's not something I really care to have. When I think of competing with other people to get my hands on one, I just get lazy. If the silver amiibo Mario ends up coming as a Club Nintendo award, I will probably try and nab that one.
Well, I'm glad to hear that she doesn't share your level of disdain for solid-colored Mario figurines.
Oh, the silver one's not. The silver one, I'm not as disgusted. The gold, just barf. I guess I need to see it. Hopefully you'll get one and you can show me on screen. And then, yeah. And then I can just...
on the camera?
Yes. I can judge for myself if it's as barf-worthy as it seems. Which,
I'll make sure to get some good lighting to really highlight the metallic fleck.
The silver one, though, isn't too terrible, but both of them are just kind of... Like, if Nintendo's going to do variations, I like the idea of light-ups or, like, some really cool poses or costumes. This whole just, like, painting them metallic or gold. I hate the same thing. I dislike it very much in Mario Kart as well, when they're like, oh, you can play as... What, like...
Pink gold?
Yeah, peach gold peach or whatever. It's like, oh, that's, yeah, wonderful. That's like, people are like, Nintendo's so creative. Sometimes I just think of peach gold peach or whatever the proper name is and be
pink
like,
gold.
They're pink gold? Is
yes.
That what it is? Oh my
yes.
God. Pink gold peach. And like, yes, they are very creative. Right there with Baby Peach and Baby Rosalina. And I'm someone who loves Baby Rosalina, but still.
So angry.
Anyway, yes, I'll be excited to hear more about Codename Steam.
Yeah, me too.
It's no surprise that it's a divisive game, I think. Even when I played it, you can definitely see that. Some people are going to be crazy about it, and some people are just going to be like, how can you deal with some of the issues? So... Our next comment comes from Nintendo Dude GCN. I've been having a hawk's eye on that NES amiibo too, Evan. That amiibo is my holy grail, so to speak. As for Gold amiibo, I don't find it particularly attractive. Have you guys seen the actual images of it yet? It looks even worse than pre-release images.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Womp, 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 womp. I'll have to look that up.
Continuing on, I put a few more hours into Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. As I've said before, the game's absolutely beautiful. I love the art style and the music is phenomenal. For a Kirby game, though, I find it actually a bit challenging. I don't know if I just suck at drawing the rainbow lines, but directing Kirby with the necessary precision in certain areas and challenges can be frustrating at times. I'm obsessed with collecting all the figurines, music pieces, and diary pages in each level before moving on to the next one. There have been times when I've had to replay a level 3 or 4 times to get something I missed because I couldn't direct Kirby precisely enough. Overall, I find it a really fun game, though. If you're just playing to complete all the levels and nothing more, you can get through it with no issues probably. But the true meat of the experience is the exploration and collection factor.
Which I think was also the case for Kirby's Epic Yarn, which probably is not nearly as challenging as this game. I remember Kirby's Canvas Curse was actually pretty tricky for me. I couldn't ever really get the swing of it, so I'm not surprised to hear that this one is similarly challenging. But something that I've loved about the Kirby games that I have played and gotten the hang of and enjoyed was art style and music, and that there's all these little collectibles that you can run for it. And it's not like a Mario game where you're like, well, maybe if I jump down this bottomless pit, I won't die. I'll find something, as they were in the olden days. But thank you very much for your detailed game impressions. We always love that and the feedback and hearing what people are playing.
Yeah, and no, I'd be curious. I know that you're not interested in picking up Rainbow Curse, but if you can get the soundtrack on YouTube, I'd like to hear your take on the music. Maybe do a little homework before next week.
Yeah.
That's my job as Iwata, make you do stuff. Next comment from Saki Projects. I finished Majora's Mask 3D. Got all the masks with the help of the guide. It's my number 2 most played 3DS game now after Bravely Default. I think it's a lot better than I gave it credit for, but it's still flawed and kind of middle of the pack for Zelda games. Since you were discussing Zelda stuff, I have 2 ideas. Since Wii U has a touchpad, what if they do Spirit Tracks or the Phantom Hourglass HD remakes? Maybe a double pack? Phantom Hourglass was pretty maligned. Maybe they could update it for the best, like Majora's Mask 3D. No, I just saw your eyes light up at that prospect.
Heck yeah, I loved both of those games. And you're right, Kisaki Project. The Wii U would be an excellent system for an HD re-release of those titles. I love the twin pack idea. It's great. It would, yeah, I would totally be down for that.
And at the same time, if they don't do the remake route, whatever happened to DS games coming to the Wii U?
Your guess is as good as mine, because I thought we would see DS games on Wii U long before we would see Game Boy Advance, because who knows if future Nintendo home consoles will have a touchscreen on them in their interface or not. And this is the perfect home console to translate DS games or any type of DS or 3DS games into a gigantic home theater setup. And instead we're getting Game Boy Advance.
Or Wii games. We've gotten Wii games before that too, although they don't have all the functionality. But yeah, that's just
so
bizarre.
Weird.
Kisaki Project's comment continues. Number 2, my idea for developer Grezzo is an original 3D Zelda on 3DS using the assets they already have. I think a sequel to Majora's Mask would be cool. Have a unique mask and transformation for each dungeon, but have more dungeons and none of that 3-day nonsense.
I think that'd be kind of cool. They could even bridge Hyrule and Termina, however you pronounce that, into a huge double world. And that would be a little bit of world traveling. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think they could do really cool stuff, especially if you don't have to worry about assets and building all of that. You can really focus on the world and the story and the exploration. I think there's a lot of really cool ways they could go with the next handheld Zelda, and I think everyone's kind of excited to see how Grezzo's role evolves now that they've remade 2 of them for the 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
Our last comment comes from old school 1990s. Hey guys, I've been playing Hyrule Warriors a lot recently now that the Boss Pack DLC has been released. Playing this game is so much fun. It is just a great addition. Just imagine if you were able to take control of a final boss in a Zelda game. That's how powerful Ganon feels. I think the post-launch support for this title has been amazing. All the extra characters to play as, the 3 extra adventure mode maps, the new weapons and outfits for existing characters, several level cap increases, and now they've expanded the challenge mode with several new scenarios. including the Ganon's Fury Challenge. I've sunk more time into Hyrule Warriors than any other Wii U game, and I still have as much fun now as I did on release day.
I tell you what, I did not expect Hyrule Warriors to be the sleeper hit darling
Yeah.
that it was, and that we continue to hear from people who are just loving the game, and that the game has gotten so much post-release support is also even better for fans out there of the game. And I now believe I would not be surprised if we actually saw a sequel to this game, whereas before I thought it would have been a one and done. It's going to come, it's going to fill in a blank spot on the calendar, and it's going to be gone, and there's going to be some people who like it, but we won't hear all this raving about it. But it's been really great, which that's fantastic, especially since it was developed by a third party.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to check it out. I mean, one of my big issues that longtime listeners and viewers know is the lack of online co-op, which I feel like is still unexcusable. But I feel like I'm now in that limbo of I'm sure they're gonna re-release it with like a Game of the Year edition and all this DLC packed in for a budget price. So maybe I should just wait for that. But yeah, I'm. It's really cool to see how this game has really captured our fans' imagination and how much they loved it. So it's really cool to see a game like that shine. But that is all for feedback, Noah. I pass the baton back on to you.
Thank you very much, Evan, and thank you to everybody who took the time to listen to or watch your show and write in. We hope we get to hear from all of you again. And if you haven't written in before, feel free to do so. Send us an email to show@nfmagazine.com, leave us a comment over on our YouTube channel, or you can send us a tweet. Evan's Twitter is @EvanCampbell, mine is @ThisIsNoah, and of course, NF Magazine is @Nintendo Force. Don't forget you can subscribe to us on YouTube at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/nfmagazine, or you can also subscribe to us on iTunes. Please feel free to like our video, leave us a review on iTunes. We love all the feedback, and we do take it to heart. We love hearing your new ideas and suggestions for making our show even better for all of you out there. Thank you again for joining us, and we will be back next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.